re-examining our federalism, a federal system. You know, lots of calls have been given out here and there about how we need to take a second look as we are presently constituted. Well, the latest happens to be Mr. Makanyango, former Secretary General of Commonwealth. Well, let's see if we can listen, just in case you missed out on what he said at the time.
That we must return to true federalism if we are to achieve the stability, the peace, and the level of development that we aspire to. And I see this as the preeminent challenge which faces the current efforts to review and amend our 1999 Constitution.
All right, there you have it. Mr. Mike Igini joins us now. He's a resident electoral commissioner for Cross River State. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Chamberlain, it's my pleasure to be here.
But even before you got into INEC, you had sometime talked about this kind of matter. But it comes back to the front burner. Bottom line is development. But now they're talking about amending the Constitution, and he also brings that up, how we need to do one or two things about it. But from what you've seen, what areas stand out that we should look at for you?
Well, first and foremost, I think that every speech, every remark, every lecture of this nature must catch the truth of the moment. And that's exactly what he has said. The painful reality is that the challenge of yesterday remains the challenge of today. And if we fail to do what we should do today, it will remain the challenge of tomorrow. 52 years after independence, Nigeria is still grappling with the intricacies of nationhood. How to live together has been a problem. But I think fundamentally, the issue about federalism have been looked at from, I have listened to debates from a multi-point of view. But like you rightly said, the federalism is not only a system, a structure, a system that takes that accommodates political, cultural, and religious diversities, but it is an economic tool. It's a development tool, and that was why, regrettably, unlike in the U.S., that's founded on idea, where we seem or pretend to copy our own model from. The whole idea of federalism is that first you must have a federal state. That is to say, where we have so many diversities and all that, the best framework that will bring people together to maintain their diversity so that their rich texture of religious, cultural diversity will be a blessing is by way of a federal system of government. And so, prior to the independence, from 1922, down to all the constitutional conferences that we have had in this country, 1922, down to 1946, 1951 Mark-Faxon, then the little constitution 1954, the federal constitution and order, were all effort our forefathers to have a framework that will accelerate development of Nigeria. It was based on this that in 1960, when we had independence, J.F. Kennedy declared in the U.S. that a big child that be born in Africa, that in 20 years' time, it will be like the United States, as at the time he made that declaration. But what has happened today? Now, you find out that the golden era of development in Nigeria, because today the world has not lacked leaders, has not lacked people who has emerged as leaders. But what we are grappling with worldwide is development. And so, the forefathers, they did all works and all that, painstaking efforts, and they came up with the idea of federalism. And you find out that in the First Republic, that was the golden era of development in Nigeria. Why? Because as at that time, if you look at the Constitution, in 1960, we had only 44 items. In 1963, we had 45
On which list?
on the exclusive list. Now, in 1979, the exclusive list for the federal tier was now increased to 66. And under the current constitution, we have 68 items. And so, now with the increase of the exclusive list, you were weakening the federating unit in terms of development. And that was why a few weeks ago when we were in Dublin in the IBA conference, I sat with two Americans and a Briton who said his forefather, his grandfather, spent almost 20 years or 30 years or so in Nigeria. They were lamenting the challenge of Nigeria, particularly those guys from the US. And the question they put to me, well, look, the United States of America, that the 50 states are centers of development, and that the size of America is like the size of the whole of Africa. That how will it appear that every month, every state in the US will go to the Washington to go and collect a handout? And so that the state must be center of development. And so, as we are looking at what is going on, like the chief said, he said it all. Without devolving more powers to the states, we are going to remain like, so Shambali, my worry is this. I grew up hearing this matter over and again. I am afraid whether in my time we see the accelerated development of Nigeria using the tool of development. As at May, we were in Abuja, and we had a conference led by Otive Egbuzo of Nigeria from the entire 36 states of the Federation, young men who had great vision for Nigeria, when on the topic, federalism as a tool for development in Nigeria. And we did what we call mapping of the entire country. And we discovered that there's nowhere in Nigeria that we don't have resources. And the problem, the emphasis have been sharing without expanding the productive base. So the roadmap for Nigeria is to ensure that we reduce the federalists so that the states and the local governments become centers of development. Because look at the debate now, the what do you call it, Horeke Sunday. I'm sure you are hearing the argument about which tier of government will better manage emergency crisis in terms of FEMA in the US, Federal Emergency Management Agency in America. The argument was that it will better manage in the state. But however, there should also be, if the federal will have their own institution to also support what goes on here and other. That's the direction we must go. Otherwise, Nigeria will remain the way we are. So in the amendment, we must reduce the exclusive list and leave so many matters to the state. Look at the prison, for instance. Prison. 90% of the inmates in prison, they were brought in there by state laws. How come prison is the exclusive?